I'm Will Price, the home and drinks editor at gearpatrol.com, and I have a cast iron skillet problem. Before getting into magazines, I worked at a cast iron skillet company in Charleston, South Carolina, where we made skillets, seasoned them, machined them, refurbished them, removed rust, everything you can think of. And now I work at Gear Patrol writing about cast iron skillets. What we're going to do today is talk a little bit about those pain points people have with them, that seasoning, how to remove rust if it arises, how to clean it if something sticky gets on it. Let's talk about how to care for a cast iron skillet.
15 seconds. That's about how long it takes to open up a whole new sensation in the all-new Lexus LC convertible. The feelings of warm sun and cool breeze, the sound of heart-pounding engine notes. And that's on top of the exhilaration you feel from peak performance. With real-time suspension dampening, a lightweight chassis, and agile handling, the LC convertible arrives without compromise. The all-new Lexus LC convertible. Experience amazing at its most amazing.
So what I'm going to be using are products that everybody has, nothing super fancy. It's going to be a cast iron skillet, an oven, an oily rag, and a neutral oil. The way that seasoning is applied to a skillet is through fats, so either neutral cooking oils or animal fats. Cooking oils like, canola are excellent. Some people use grapeseed oil, there's sunflower seed oil. I would avoid olive oil, sort of more lighter colored, neutral looking. That's generally speaking a good bet. And what happens is that those fats are dehydrated. That process is called polymerization, and the fats actually become hard and create sort of a suit of armor around the iron so that you're not going to get any off tastes in the food you're cooking or spots of rust on the skillet. The first thing you want to do before you start seasoning your skillet is to preheat your oven to 400 degrees. Some people will say 450, 500, someone will put it even on the clean cycle. 400 should be plenty of heat to do what needs to be done. The next thing you want to do before anything else happens, any oil, any seasoning happens, is to clean the pan as best as you can. This is going to be any pieces of little food flakes or bacon grease or anything, a little water, maybe anything that could be on the pan needs to be off the pan, and the pan needs to be completely dry before any of this seasoning process occurs. If you apply a layer of seasoning over that stuff, you'll have little bumps and cracks and things that are both unsightly and also potentially can flake away at your skillet and make your seasoning just more difficult to come by. So after you've gotten everything off the pan, you want to dry off the skillet by putting it in the oven that's preheating for about 10 minutes. Any moisture that's sort of still on the skillet that you didn't get will potentially compromise how your seasoning occurs. It could make it a little stickier, it could give it some sort of spider or cobweb patterns that are common with first-time skillet seasoners. Just put it in the oven for a few minutes, let all that moisture evaporate, you'll be happier for it. Once it's properly dry, you pull it out of the oven and you apply about a half a tablespoon of a neutral cooking oil to the skillet. Rub it around the surface as best you can, both cooking surface and the exterior. A big thing here is to not over-oil the skillet. The most common mistake people make is applying way too much oil. If your skillet, after having wiped that oil around the skillet, is still shiny, glossy, or even dripping with oil, is way too much oil. Wipe it out once, get a rag that's maybe a little bit drier if you need to, wipe it out again. It needs to be matte, almost imperceptible that you've applied a layer of seasoning, but you have, I promise you do not need to keep wiping it. The next thing you're going to do is place the skillet in the oven with the cooking side down. And the reason you do this is because any excess oil or moisture, anything that you have on your skillet, if it's facing down, it will slowly fall out of the pan as opposed to pull up, create really dark spots, sort of mismatched layers of seasoning. After 15 minutes of seasoning, you want to pull the pan out of the oven and with a dry rag, wipe in a circle and clean it up a little bit. What you're going to notice when you pull it out is all that area that looked like a perfect matte finish you had, there's going to start appearing maybe some splotches that you couldn't see. There was a higher concentration of oil, which is fine. So what that rag is going to do is redistribute that before it polymerizes, before it becomes too hard for you to fix. And the last thing is just let it season for, up to an hour. Some people go longer. I would go for at least an hour. It's going to polymerize, it'll start hardening, and it should come out looking fairly even. One of the biggest questions people have is when to know if they need to add more seasoning layers. Visually, the way you can know is if it's lighter in color than you're used to a cast iron skillet looking, you should add more layers. It is important to note here that a lot of skillets now, especially from big companies like Lodge or Victoria or what have you, come with essentially what are fake colorings. So iron in its natural state, natural seasoned state, is not black. It achieves that blackness over years and years and years of cooking. If it's brown or if it's a little bit gray or what have you, that's fine. Add a couple more layers. If you have something from one of those big brands, just stick to a good rule of thumb, 2 or 3 seasoning layers. If you go short, you may have problems, you may not, but it's good to be safe. A lot of people think about cast iron skillet in terms of what they can and can't cook in it. There are some things that I would avoid, especially if it's a new pan or if you have very little seasoning on the pan. Those things, by and large, are foods that are high in acid. Vinegars, so apple cider vinegar, white wine vinegar, rice wine vinegar, etc. Lemon juice, lime juice, things like that are extremely high in acid. Orange is probably problematic as well. I would skip that early on. And one of the ones that I think is probably most disappointing, at least for me, is a lot of wines can be problematic, very high in acid. That alcohol can sort of eat away at the pan, especially if it's sort of a younger pan. All that said, if you have a really old pan like the one I happen to be using here, I can cook anything in this I absolutely want. It has enough seasoning, it will not be problematic. There are foods that are also sort of problematic in a different way because they're sort of just a bitch and a half to clean. Most people wouldn't scramble eggs or other very, very delicate light things that get stuck and sort of crusty very easily like that in a skillet. Fish, that's probably the biggest one. If you have a fish fillet and you cook in a cast iron skillet, it'll get stuck to the skillet and it'll be infinitely more difficult to pull off. But virtually everything other than that, you should have absolutely no problem with. So that is everything about cast iron. I'm Will Price, the home and drinks editor at GilbertShell.com. If you have any questions, comments, or if you want to sling shit at me, you can do so in the comments below.